Hey everyone, Sycra here, and today I'm going to be doing a critique of one of the forum members over at the Sycra.net forums. Alright, so here we have a figure, and it's looking pretty nice. The proportions are quite good, but there's a few areas that could be worked on, and the overall biggest problem that I see is a lack of rhythm. So let's see if we can tackle that. So what I mean by rhythm is the flow from one body part to the next, like the movement in the figure, the way things relate. And so I'm just creating a line for the center line. I'll get in the head. I'll just get in the basic proportions, going halfway to find the crotch and getting the shoulders and all that. So I'm not thinking of rhythm too much right now. Here I'm putting in the shoulders, but very quickly I'm going to get into more rhythmic things. So again, find the bottom of the feet, go halfway. And I think I might have extended your figure a bit longer because, I don't know, it's a bad habit of mine, I suppose. Or in my style, I tend to exaggerate things and make them a bit longer. But anyway, yeah, so here's just getting in the rib cage and things. But now you'll see I start to kind of work in rhythm where I'm simplifying the arms to just these sticks. And I almost feel bad for using sticks because it's not really sticks. It's more just flowy lines. And here also I'm showing the crotch, and then the widest part of the hips are actually on the same level as the crotch, so that's why I put those 2 points, because I know those 2 points are going to be the widest. And I'm sort of encasing the whole leg region in a big rhythm. So there's that one rhythm, and then there's like this big triangle, an inverted triangle that is connecting from the crotch to the shoulders. That's another rhythm. And now I'm strengthening the rhythm of the legs, and you can see the legs kind of fit in this big triangle shape. I don't know if you can see that, but let me just highlight the rhythm line. So here's the one, here's the big, I guess, V or inverted triangle, and then this creates there's like an oval that's created. If you picture the crotch in the middle of the oval, then it sort of encases the upper part of the pelvis, and it goes down the legs. And I mean, it's an imaginary line, right? Like none of these are really, you don't see big ovals around the body. So here I'm putting in where the limbs go, sort of the center of the limbs, and then I mean, all of this is stuff you think about a lot, so I hate to keep repeating that, but just want to make it clear that these are things that maybe you started as a foundation, but then you internalize it and make it so you don't really need to be drawing all these lines, but you feel them. But even if you do draw them, it doesn't hurt. So here's that big triangle I was talking about. So I'll start with the arm, and you notice how I put those purple lines to sort of create that, I don't know, maybe it's a cone is a better way of describing it than a triangle. But yeah, then if I fit the limbs within that, you get this sort of proportion. And you'll see in yours it's missing. It's not like it's not entirely there, but you'll see the rhythm isn't there, where the arms are taking on this very straight look. It's like a straight line with bumps on it. And the same thing with the legs. And I understand why you would put it that way, because that's sort of how it looks. And all the rhythm stuff is not what you see. So when you look at reference, yeah, you don't see those lines, but they are sort of there in the same way gravity is there, right? Like you could imagine everything has a center of gravity, and you could draw a line from the center of that thing's center of gravity to the ground, and that would be an imaginary line, but it's there. And when you include those things, it really does take your figures to the next level, because, I mean, we actually do have those rhythms to our body. I mean, our bodies are designed a certain way. And, I mean, when you look at dancers or something, they're elegant because there is that flow. Here's another thing is that I noticed, well, it's not so bad in your figures. It's okay. But you just want to make sure you're not having symmetrical areas, like, for instance, on the calves or the thighs or the upper arms, where you get this kind of bulging shape on each side. The body has, again, a rhythm where one line or one muscle tends to be a bit higher than another, and it just creates this asymmetrical flow to things. And if you can start to find that asymmetrical flow, it will really help. And that's why I use the lightning bolt technique, which is what I'm using for the arms right now, to get that flow. It's just a way that seems to get rhythm naturally, just by doing it. Having that lightning bolt, it's pretty effective. So yeah, getting the hips. And so although I start with that big triangle shape, now everything is within that. So that big triangle initial thing was sort of the border, that's like the fence, and then that contains everything else. And getting the navel in. So, I mean, all your proportions are pretty good. Everything's sort of on the right level. I did notice the shoulders were a bit weak. And I noticed in your earlier post on the forum that your shoulders were a bit broad. And I guess you sort of overcompensated, but I think you went a bit too far. Where it just... It's a bit on the narrow side. And I'm also noticing that your figure is a bit more chubby than the one I'm creating, so I will address that later on. I guess I'm just used to drawing in my own style so much that I tend to do these more skinny people. And about that shoulder thing, there is this relationship I like to use, which is I just imagine the person's wearing a hood, like the hoodie with the hood on, and I see this triangular shape, and in yours it's more of a upside down U shape. So you just want to see, if you can get to seeing some of those things. And actually, when I draw, I do sometimes actually draw that hood shape from the shoulders to the top of the head, and I don't know why, it just helps me. And here, the issue that I'm seeing is that your collarbones are really going upwards towards the shoulder. And actually, that's more what happens with men. With women, it almost takes a downward slope from the... or it's more level, but kind of downward from the middle of the sternum to the shoulders. So yeah, just want to keep that in mind. And using the triangle to find the nipples, which I think you did good with that. Maybe I was a bit sloppy with the breasts on this one. But now let's see if we can get to bring the more, I guess, add more fat to this figure, because it did look like yours, and I think I might have overdone it, but it does feel like yours is a bit more meat on the bones. So gonna do that, and it's just gonna sort of round out a lot of the forms, but there's still gonna be that rhythm. So you can see when I do lines, and I'm being a bit chicken scratchy here, which I'm not liking, but it is sort of one big line, right? Like, You notice that? How there's that flow from the shoulder and it goes down all the way to the wrist, even to the fingers. It's one flow. Whereas in yours, it looks more like 3 or 4 separate lines from the shoulder to the fingers. And I'm looking at her right, our screen left arm. Yeah, and another thing, if the person is fatter, then what's going to happen is, I mean, because right now you have fat in certain places and you have a big gap between the thighs. And usually, I mean, it takes quite a skinny person to have that gap, or a very lean person if you want to get that gap. Usually what'll happen is the thighs will actually touch, and especially the more overweight you are, the more, and I'm not saying this person's overweight, but the more weight you have on you, the more the thighs are definitely going to be touching, and you won't get that gap between the thighs. I mean, unless your legs are really open, but in the case of your picture, it doesn't really look like they are. And you'll notice that in your case, the thighs go down and then the legs sort of, I don't know, bow out. But most of the time when I see women, their legs go towards the middle more, like everything bends inward. So that's something to pay attention to. And yeah, I mean, pretty much that's it. You're doing all right. And the other thing you want to watch out for is the forms. You want to be feeling the forms, and that's why when I drew the triangle enveloping it, I start to correct myself and talk about cones, because you want to think of volumes, not just flat shapes. And when I look at yours, it does take on that sort of flat appearance in some places. And so you really want to focus on it. The more you pay attention to it, the more it's not going to look so flat. And you know, if you start to draw bigger lines, more flowing lines, and make more cylindrical forms, that could help as well. Because there's a tendency to just draw lines and erase them and not focus on like big volumes. So here I'm just showing again how the legs still have a rhythm and the arms have a rhythm, and I'll just do a little quick figure with rhythm. And this is what I do with more fat figures. I just simplify them to shapes like this, and that's how I start. And then on top of that, I build the anatomy. So what you need to be looking for is the skeleton underneath the skeleton, and that's the rhythm. That's the ultimate foundation. So hope that helped, and thanks for watching.